Hello, hello, my friends, and welcome back to another episode of Elements of Success. I am your host, Safriana Luna, and it was so weird to skip a week. I took a week off because I had jury duty and a bunch of other things going on. So I missed you all and hope that you were digesting our last session all about our different energy blueprints because today we're going to continue into that. Now, even if you haven't figured out your full energy blueprint so far, that's totally okay. It is one of those things that takes many, many, many years for us to really get to know about ourselves. So, no shame, no pressure if you are still figuring out your patterns. But today, we're really going to dive into what might be disrupting you from even maintaining your energy in the first place. So, again, welcome to episode 9, Identifying Energy Leaks. And just in case you don't know me, like I said, I'm Safriana Luna. I am also known as the Queer Spirit Guide. I am a transformational mentor, trauma therapist, speaker, author, CEO. And as always, it's a delight to teach you all the skills and learnings and everything I have amassed over my professional and personal life so that you can hopefully take some shortcuts and get back to feeling like yourself more quickly. So, if you did tune in for our last episode, I just want to check in how your blueprint mapping went. So, maybe you started to notice that you most strongly identify with being an empath, being an energy sensitive, or having that gift of earth sense that we talked about. If you're, again, not making these connections yet, that's totally fine. Stay open to what might be happening underneath the surface of your being and how you are picking up on energy, emotion, information, etc. from around you. This is really important information for us to get to know about ourselves. And did you notice that you felt particularly energized at any given point in time? Did you notice times where you felt really authentically yourself throughout the past few weeks, where you were really anchored in who you are, embodied in what you're here to do? And if so, what were you doing? Who were you being? How are you showing up? And how did that impact your energy? These are all great things to consider. And finally, did you notice any particular daily or weekly rhythms? For me, over the past few weeks, my schedule was really disrupted because I was called in for jury duty. And it was not just getting called in on the first day, but then sort of being on hold, not knowing if I was going to be called back in subsequent days. So my whole schedule was kind of hinged around that. And I noticed how much I really need a steady, consistent rhythm, and how when there is variation for me, it's really hard for me to maintain my energy. So it was a really good observation for me. While some people totally are completely energized by having variable, adaptable, flexible schedules and kind of going with the flow in every single moment. So, whatever the answer is for you, know that you are perfectly designed to be who you're here to be. And it's more a matter of getting curious about how you can continue to support your energy. So, now that we're actually starting to break these things down, we're starting to get to know what makes you you. Now we can also begin to really consider what's draining your specific life force energy. So, we are going to get really deep in today. Today would be a great day to grab a notebook and a pen in case there are any observations you want to jot down, because energy leaks are everywhere in our lives and we just don't even realize how we are literally hemorrhaging our vital life force through all of these outstanding issues, through all of these thought patterns, through physical stuff. And I'm going to go into a lot of them today. So definitely buckle up because this is going to be a lot of information. But as always, we're going to go through it and we're going to look at it in terms of our different bodies, our, physical forms, mental, emotional, spiritual. We're going to be looking at modern life versus day-to-day things that maybe we don't even consider. So let's go ahead and jump in. So, first, an energy leak. What is it? It's anything that drains your vital life force without giving something back of equal or greater energy in return. So things that we love may still drain our energy. That's important to realize, right? Going and working out is still going to drain our energy, but it's also likely going to give us something back. It's going to give us strength. It's going to give us more vitality. It's going to give us resilience. So it's one of those things where it ultimately ends up leveling itself out. That's what we want to look for in terms of how we fill our time and how we spend our days, is with things that really give us something back in return, even if it's not immediate. But if we're constantly just losing and giving away our energy and giving away our energy, we're going to be very sapped people. It's going to be very hard to live our meaning and our purpose in the world. So this matters. Even if you have perfect breathing, as we've talked about in prior sessions, even if you have perfect self awareness, these sorts of leaks we're talking about today can absolutely sabotage your energy. Uh, yeah. Comment here. Been feeling very leaky lately. So glad you're talking about this. It's really, we don't talk enough about this. And most of us are probably feeling pretty energetically leaky right now, especially with collective turmoil and chaos happening. And it's really important to note that our different energy types and our different gifts and our different bio numbers, our different physical forms, all have variable vulnerability patterns. And what I mean by that is what drains me may not drain you. Again, for me, jury duty was like a big deal. I really did not want to have to go. I knew it was not going to be an energetic match for me because I am a highly sensitive person. On the other hand, I know some people who would be totally jazzed about the idea of being selected for jury duty and getting to go and be in the court. And it would be like an episode of true crime for them and they'd love it. Right. So, what energizes me may not energize you, and vice versa. And that's just really important for us to acknowledge because there is no universal one size fits all. And unfortunately, I know what burnout feels like through and through. I have been burnt out for large swaths of my adult life. When we don't address our energy leaks, they empty us over time and we end up really burnt out. So, our goal is to identify our personal energy leaks so that we can fill ourselves back up ultimately with conscious practices that are filling our cup and giving us that energy back. Again, giving back equal or greater energy in return. This was a spectrum. I don't even remember where this came up. It was in some coaching program that I took a long time ago. And I had this in my notes and I was like, this is part of the energy leak spectrum we need to talk about. So, on this spectrum, on one end, we have desire, and on the other end, we have discomfort. So, desire, when we're feeling desire, we feel like anything is possible. I'm excited. I have all this energy and this inspiration that I want to give to this thing I desire. So let's say it's a project you're working on, right? You feel all this desire for the project. On the other end of the spectrum, you have discomfort. Maybe that's now you've started the project and now you're feeling stress or you're feeling resistance. Doing the action of doing the project might be depleting you in some way. You might be forcing it through because you're trying to bring back that inspiration and that high energy and that excitement that you once felt when you had the desire. I'm sure you've all felt these two ends of the spectrum at different points in time where you have that intense desire and then you go to get started or you go to actually engage and then the discomfort comes in. And how do we get through this? Because desire doesn't move something forward, and discomfort often keeps us frozen. So we want to come to the middle, which is commitment, which is where we can take sustainable action, make aligned effort. This whole seasonal, seasonal is like my shtick. This elements of success, where we're going through the seasons framework, we're trying to come to this aligned, sustainable effort, knowing that we are natural beings, that we're pretty much exactly a part of the planet. We're a living, breathing entity, just like all of the plants and animals out there. And so we are dependent on sustainability and natural rhythms to stay healthy. So discomfort isn't where that lies, and desire isn't where that lies. We need the middle where we're willing to be a little uncomfortable and maintain a bit of desire so that we can engage and we can keep moving through. So, This is just a good snapshot of this spectrum. We want, again, to land in the middle, not somewhere on either end of an extreme. This is true for most of life. Let's try to avoid the extremes. And so, in this spectrum, energy leaks happen when we get stuck on either end because we're either trying to force action from discomfort and not commitment, or we're chasing a desire without the ability to be committed in the follow through. And so things just don't happen. And then that inspiration fizzles and fades. Or if we are operating from obligation, so much energy leaking comes out of simply the sense of obligation. Yeah, that's right, madam. And so the sweet spot is learning to be fluidly moving between that desire and commitment while reducing how much time we spend in discomfort, because the discomfort is a natural part of life. But we can reduce that, we can ease it, we can accept it instead of getting stuck in it. So, what really gives us energy versus what drains our energy? I said there's no one size fits all, but these are some overarching themes. Energy giving patterns come from living joyfully, being authentically self expressed, being free to share our voice and show up in the power of who we are, putting our own energetic needs first. In other words, filling our own cup first. Oh my gosh, I know. I know. This is like the putting your needs first is such a big deal for so many of us, and I have been stuck here, again, for large swaths of my life where it felt like, well, I need to help others before I can help myself. But in reality, when we actually look at how things work and how we're successful, it is when we are making sure that we're eating well, when we're resting, when we are not overextending ourselves. And then suddenly we have a reserve of energy that we can put out into the world and offer back to people. But we get this so backwards and we try to give to other people first. And then we think, well, I'll give to myself later. But by that point, you are so depleted from the overgiving that you can't give anymore at all. And that's often what burnout looks like. So I just want to normalize and look deep into your souls over there and say, you do not have to overgive. You can fill your own cup first. And I guarantee you, it will make you more capable. It will allow you to have more energy to where you can actually give back to the world more. So, when we pursue our own dreams, our own authentic desires, we live in alignment with our values, our truth, and we are in that zone of commitment rather than that zone of discomfort and forcing. This is all going to give us back some of our energy. Now, energy draining patterns are going to look like codependency, over giving to others, being stuck in doing mode, or sometimes in being mode. you know, I realize that it's just as possible for us to get stuck in being. Uh, I have gotten stuck in modes where all I'm doing for, like a day and I'll snap out of it, but like a day I'm doing nothing but scrolling my phone or playing a video game or shutting out and isolating from the world. So there's not a lot of doing or producing, but I also feel depleted because I'm not engaged with life. I'm sort of passive. So we can absolutely over be. We want that balance of doing and being, or we're going to drain our energy. Having a spiritual disconnection from our meaning or purpose can be a huge drain. And I know so many people are out there trying to figure out their purpose in life, and that in of itself becomes a drain because they're striving so hard to figure out what their purpose is that they're forgetting to live their life. So, the spiritual connection of just, I am an alive being with a body and a mind and a spirit and emotions, and I'm going to move through life connected to the energy of living, that's going to be more energy giving than if we're torn up about not knowing what our purpose or our meaning is. But we want to be at least spiritually connected to our sense of higher self. We talked a little bit about obligation rather than choice. Huge, 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 huge. Obligation is a soul killer in so many ways. When we feel like we're obligated, we don't have a choice to give, we just have to give, that saps that desire, right? And then we are not operating out of any sense of commitment, but rather forcing. So we want that commitment, we want that choice, not to have to force things or stay stuck in discomfort. So let's talk about specific types of drains. And again, I know I'm loading you with a lot of information today. That's why I'm suggesting you jot down anything that really leaps out to you. So physically, nutrition can actually be a major drain. Obviously, we know if we eat too much sugar, if we're eating a ton of processed foods, that's going to drain our energy because you literally, and I cannot say this enough, you are what you eat. It's a really cliche old saying, but the more that I've studied integrative medicine and nutrition and herbalism in my career, the more that I know this to be true. And from personal experiences, you are literally what you eat. So if you are even eating supposedly well, but you're still feeling really drained, you may not be eating for your correct constitution. And what I mean by that in the Vedic sciences and Ayurveda, there are three doshas that are Kapha, Pitta, and Vata. And in essence, I am not going into a deep dive on Ayurveda today, but those three constitutions, one is usually dominant in each of us. I am very Kapha dominant. And what that means is I need to eat warm, moist, cooked foods. If I try to eat a lot of raw food, my energy is drained because my body is working way too hard to digest it. So, if you're eating a lot of raw food or you're eating a lot of cooked food, if you're eating a lot of fats and any pattern you notice an excessive amount of bloating or low energy or fatigue after you eat, you might need to look at your nutrition and are you actually supporting what your body uniquely needs? There is no one right size fits all for diet in any way, shape, or form. Then we have movement. So both lack of movement and too much intense movement can be energy drains. I know you've probably overslept before and then you're like, why do I feel even more tired? Because your body didn't move enough to keep producing the energy that it needs. So we want to find our sweet spot when it comes to movement. Of course, we have environmental toxins and poor air quality. So many people that I know right now have been around a lot of fires and environmental destruction and, low air quality. That absolutely can be a physical energy drain because we've talked about how important the breath is in the body. Chronic pain or other underlying health issues, of course, can be energy drains. I have fibromyalgia and other chronic conditions, so I know all about this one. And unfortunately, sometimes there's not a lot we can do other than maybe take a medication that might even drain our energy more. So, this is where other supports are really important: eating right, moving that's in ways that are right for our body, managing our environment so that we can have more ease in our body. Sensory squicks, this is what I call them as a neurospicy person. So, sensory squicks are those environmental factors that make you uncomfortable. This can be sounds, this can be textures, this can be smells, flashing lights, anything that your body is sensitive to. So, for example, I'm really, really sensitive to smell. My olfactory senses are like supercharged. So if I'm around really, really strong smells, I have no energy to do anything else because it's overtaking me and that's all I can focus on. So knowing this about your body and what your preferences are really important. Your ultradian rhythm and your circadian rhythm are two different things. So, your ultradian rhythm is actually something that moves in and out during your waking time. And it's sort of in these 90 ish minute chunks of focus and rest cycles. And our ultradian rhythm is, variable person to person, but tends to follow this 90-minute pattern. So, if we're trying to push against times when the brain is more in that rest mode, that can be a big energy drain because we're going against what our body is actually informing us on. And then, of course, your circadian rhythm, your sleep cycles, your ability to go to sleep, fall asleep, wake up. And when we have poor sleep quality, it's really hard to have energy. So, we talked a little bit last time about a lot of blueprint stuff. I just want to remind you sensitive types, burst types, steady types, and variable types are four very overarching ways to describe how our energy systems can work. So if you're very sensitive like me, Overstimulating environments, harsh lighting, loud sounds, etc., might not be good for your energy. If you are more of a burst type, if you don't honor your recovery times, that's going to be an extra drain for you. If you're a steady type, if you have too much variety or constant change in routine, that's going to drain you. And if you're variable, trying to fight against natural fluctuations or trying to like be rigid is actually going to drain you. So those are our physical drains. Now, emotional energy drains look like unprocessed emotions and emotional suppression. And how many of us are out there doing that? I would argue most of us are out there actively suppressing various emotions. So we need to process emotions, we need to allow them to come out. I teach about functional dissociation versus problematic dissociation, which gets into diagnoses. Everyone functionally dissociates temporarily emotions that they can't sort of look at right in that moment. That is perfectly normal. And that's something that we need to do. But when we're chronically dissociating our emotions and we're pushing them off and we're suppressing them and we're not looking at them, this leads to big, massive problems because it's like tar bubbling beneath our surface, ready to rise and burn us, essentially. So it's so important that we make space for our emotions, whether it's journaling, talking about it, going to therapy, coaching, whatever. Relationships that require us to people please in order to stay in the relationship, huge energy drain. And I say that like relationships that require us to be in people pleasing to stay in the relationship are probably not relationships that we want in the first place, but we're stuck in that codependent people pleasing pattern from past stuff with, surprise, surprise, probably suppressed emotions and unprocessed things that are continuing to run that pattern. So we need to look at those things. When we have the inability to say no, we allow our own boundaries to be violated again and again and again, which is going to lead to massive burnout, low life satisfaction, you name it. Carrying others' emotions without clear energetic boundaries. I am so guilty of this because not only am I a licensed trauma therapist, so I hold space and carry other people's emotions for a living, but I'm so natural at it that in a lot of my social settings and relationships in the past, that was what people expected me to do, was just carry their emotions and be the space holder constantly. And I didn't have clear energetic boundaries to say, no, I can't do that for you right now. Like, pause. This is not our function in the relationship. We were supposed to be hanging out to watch this movie or whatever, right? So, you need to, and we're going to talk about this in an upcoming episode, but you need to have those clear energetic boundaries so you know what you're willing to give, what you're willing to receive, and all of that. We talked a little bit last time about the window of tolerance, and that's basically when you go above your window of tolerance, you go into anxiety and overwhelm. When you go below your window of tolerance, you go into depression and shutdown. And anytime that your window of tolerance experiences a fluctuation and you get knocked up into anxiety or down into depression, obviously that's going to cause some energetic drain. And the desire is to get back into that window of tolerance where you're able to let down, let your nervous system relax, and not be reactive up into that anxiety or underreactive and shut down. And then, of course, we've talked about internal bullying and that inner voice and how much that impacts the same as external criticism, which really leads to some deep hurt feelings inside of ourselves. And that's not a pattern we want to maintain. Empaths, so if you identify with being an empath, you can end up taking on others' emotions as if they are your own, and you can experience emotional hangovers. So it's really important to kind of clear out what's yours and what's theirs so you can come back to what's just yours. Energy sensitives might struggle with kind of absorbing the vibe of chaos or negative environments if they are seeped in them for too long, which can lead to emotional energetic drain. And then, of course, earth sense, feeling disconnected from the natural rhythms, feeling disconnected from cycles. Of course, the heartbreak from environmental destruction, all of that can be a huge energy drain. And then, of course, if you're like me and you have all three of these gifts, just not having supportive environments that honor all of this level of sensitivity can be a massive drain. I have to be really, really careful when I go out into crowds and stuff. So, spiritual energy drains, we talked a little bit earlier about your purpose, living with meaning and purpose in your life. And again, we want to find balance here because if you're chasing your purpose so much that you're not living your life, that's a problem. But if you're also feeling like you're unworthy, you don't have a purpose, there is no meaning, you've probably lost the thread of that spiritual connection. And that's important to get back. If we are engaging in work or relationships that violate our core values, that is a huge spiritual energy drain. I had a client once upon a time who was so sweet and so loving of animals. She just adored animals, and she needed to have a job, of course, to support her and her son. And she wound up in a job where she was having to do scientific experiments on small animals in a lab. And I watched this person go from bright and bubbly and cheerful, even while navigating trauma, to completely shut down and just not trusting life at all. It was such a violation of her core values of loving animals and nature that her very spirit was trying to escape her, right? She could not hold the true essence of who she was while also engaging in that work. And relationships can be the same way if we're in a relationship that's really violating who we are or asking us to be something else. Of course, spiritual bypassing, I could pop off for probably an hour on spiritual bypassing. I've done numerous podcasts on spiritual bypassing. And essentially, it's when we try to claim or believe that we're a spiritual entity that is beyond the human mortal things that we're dealing with. And we use spirituality or spiritual escapism or fantasy or ritual or whatever it may be to try and bypass having to look at those deeper emotions, deeper disconnection, the issues in our life, etc. So I know it's really tempting to spiritually bypass, and it's very easy to just want to pray it away or give it to God. And those can be valid parts of our practice, but they can't be the whole of the practice, right? It's more leaning in and then releasing, seeing something and surrendering it, witnessing a part of us and then asking for help. That is what we want to do ideally instead of spiritual bypassing. And then, of course, if we don't have practices to connect ourselves, we're going to feel disconnected. We need to be connected to something beyond ourselves. So now, those of you out there with your own businesses, those of you out there that are the breadwinner, those of you out there that are a homemaker, those of you out there that are trying to live in this modern world as we are, all of these can be factors draining your energy. So, hustle culture. Again, another one I could talk about for an hour. Hustle culture ignores our natural rhythms. It asks us to keep pushing and keep going even when we are drained and exhausted because we have to get to that end goal. We have to meet that metric, whatever it is. Productivity pressure that values doing over being. So we get completely out of whack with our rest cycles because we feel like we have to be productive all the time. This is a modern invention. The more that I move towards a homesteading lifestyle, the more I realize that there is a lot to be done, but that there's a difference between hustling and doing. And hustling and productivity mindset are so toxically ingrained in our culture that we really need to be careful about looking to see where that's showing up. With the bio numbers, the biological numbers I very briefly shared about last time, I have this whole theory. I say that society wants us to be bio number zero, that society just wants everyone to be alike and fit in one mold and be constant producers and make the profit lines go up and you name it. There's this one size fits all expectation for all people, and society tries to shove us in these boxes. That is a cost of modern living. It's something that we all need to learn to escape by saying no to, essentially, by denormalizing. I'm making up a word here, but by really confronting the fact that it's not normal for all of us to be treated in this one size fits all uh, sort of container of society. I think it's so silly. So social expectations contradict our self-expression so much of the time. If I were still living under societal expectations, I would in no way consider putting queer anywhere in my name. I probably would not be going by Safriana. I probably would not be doing half of the things that I am doing in the world or showing up or teaching these things because nothing I teach is what society normalizes, but that's who I am. And so many of us are the same way. We are actually so unique and so different and so not wanting to keep up with the Joneses, so to speak. But we feel like we have to because that's what our parents, our teachers, our coaches, our mentors, etc., taught us to be. So that is an invisible drain, trying to fit in to whatever norms society is pushing on us or structures are pushing on us. And then don't even get me started about consumer culture, just this need to buy more, the need to have stuff artificially to make us feel better when half of the problems are manufactured to begin with. That artificial need and desire, it's not actually inherent to most of us, but that consumer culture has normalized it to the extent that now it's become something we think we need. And then, of course, we have digital energy drains. It's like a lot of this stuff that we just talked about would have still been accurate 20, 30 years ago. But now our enmeshment with technology is so much higher. I was using a computer at a very early age. My family had AOL when I was around 9, 10, 11 years old. And AOL was slow. You all had to fight over the computer. You couldn't make a phone call. So even though there was technology, there was also that sort of removal, like it was a little bit slower. Now everybody has a cell phone in their hand at all times. It's like almost never out of arm's reach. We can get news, we can get bad news, we can be connected to a friend at any point in time. And those constant notifications are literally leading to brain fatigue. It's leading to the inability to make decisions because there's so much to decide on. I love, you know, if you grew up watching TV where there was a program that was on at 7 p.m. on Tuesdays every week, and your friends at school watched that same program on TV at 7 p.m. on Tuesdays every week, or as an adult, you had your soap opera that came on at 11 on Wednesdays, whatever it might be. There was this sort of shared experience of culture, this shared experience of media. And now there's Netflix, there's Hulu, there's Apple, there's Amazon, we have Dropout, there's all these subscription services for different things, plus what's on your TV, plus the Roku and the different plugins that give you access to all these different apps. There's YouTube. So it's like we don't even have this shared sense of media anymore. There's so much to choose from, and there's all these ads and options being pushed at us. That is a huge energy drain. And if you ever have the opportunity to take a tech break for 3 days, ideally, and get out in nature, you will be just mind blown by what comes through for you. But with that social media and that constant consumption, there is a lot of comparison as well as overstimulation. We have information overload, and that can lead to anxiety about all the bad things that are happening in the world. And the screen time disconnects us from our natural rhythms. If there's one little tiny actionable step you could take today, let it be installing blue light filters on your phone and your computer so that you're at least having a little less of that tech disruption in your natural rhythm. Because when we have our phones on without a filter at night, we are literally beaming sunlight into our eyes. That's what our brain picks it up as. And so we're more awake because our brain is being told that the sun is still up. So, very quick, actionable step, blue light filters, because that's a huge, energetic, invisible thing we don't even think about that does have an impact. And then again, if you're a sensitive type, like if you work in an open office, if you constantly are available, if your notifications are always on, if you don't have quiet spaces, that's going to extra drain you. So be mindful of that. Now, outstanding tasks. And this is part of hustle culture. And there's so much to do, and we believe there's so much to do. We're going to have all these outstanding tasks that we believe need to be done for us to be worthy of rest. That's often the narrative I hear. But there's always going to be outstanding tasks. I wish I could quote exactly who said this, but I just recently, it was someone I believe in the Passionistas community had a podcast. I'm going to have to go and find it. And she said effectively, if you if you don't let yourself live, like you are going to have a to-do list outstanding item that is still needing done when you die. So don't let an item on your to-do list that you didn't finish be living, is essentially what she said. And I thought it was so good because that's exactly right. And we can't we can't measure our worth or our ability to rest based on what we still need to do. However, there are absolutely some things that if we hold in reserve for too long, will start to drain our energy. So, messages and phone calls that we need to return, difficult conversations that we're avoiding, emails that we know we need to read and respond to or clear out, notifications to clear out or respond to, all of those digital communication leaks do have an outstanding energy drain. So it's good to try and resolve those because otherwise they're sort of hanging out, taking up a chunk of our energy without resolution. And then, of course, physically, items to be returned, donated, cleared out, physical clutter or trash to remove, projects that are partially completed, and spaces that do not support your energy. All of these are going to create energetic leaks. So, none of us are perfect at this. Like I want to just say that none of us are perfect at this. We're always again going to have that outstanding project. We're always going to have something on the to-do list. But can we resolve some more things before we add more to our plate? Can we move forward with closing out one obligation before we take on another? And ooh, notice that I just used that word obligation, right? The only time we should be using obligation is when we have agreed to something. And that's important too. Like, what are we agreeing to do? Decision and administrative tasks, especially for those of you in business or entrepreneurship, but any form of decision that needs to be made that you keep putting off, bills or debt that need to be addressed, outstanding balances that other people owe you. If you are still owed money from someone else for a service that you rendered or a product that you sold, that's an energy leak. And then, of course, if you need to make appointments or travel arrangements, all of those can cause those energy drains too. Now, let's talk about supportive environments. You may need to change your environment to match your energy. In human design, I have the caves type of energy, and I literally made my bedroom like a cave. I have the ceiling and the walls painted a dark forest green color, so it feels like I'm very cozied in, and I shut the curtains to shut out other energy when I'm going into rest mode, and I open the curtains when I want to invite the world in. That type of environment versus an open window, door always open, white walls would not feel very energetically supportive to me. So it's really important to just consider our physical environment and how do we make that match what we need. Even here, I'm in sort of a nice little cubby in the corner of the room where I can have my back to the wall and I can look out at what else is out there. So, what do you need in that, right? What is your environmental need? Do you like big open spaces? Do you want to lounge in the middle of the room? Do you want lots of light? Do you want it to be a little darker? All of these are things that you can consider. But also finding external help is a huge thing here. So finding an accountability partner, a coach, a therapist, a community that can honor your energy and that you are in spaces that you feel really supportive in. And then creating those physical energy spaces, like I just talked about, and routines. Routines are technically a part of our environment, right? Having your routines available to you. I have all of my oracle cards and my journal out on the table so that in the morning, my environment is set to begin supporting my energy in the way that I need it to be. And environmental here also refers to that communal body. So we've talked about, um, you know, the physical body, the mental body, the emotional body, the spiritual body. Then we have the communal or the environmental body, and we really want to have a community and environment that can also support our energy. So when we are constantly around people that drain our energy, there's no reciprocation, there's no more getting back energy, it's all drain, not good for us. Physical spaces that overstimulate or understimulate our nervous system, not good for us. Those social and work cultures that aren't aligned, not good for us. If we don't have community, that's going to really be an energy depletion. And then if we're not honoring our introversion and extroversion or sort of our variable needs, that's going to make things really challenging. I have a question here. How can people have good energy while waking up in the morning? All I want to do is sleep more. So there's so many things I could say here. I'll speak to this briefly. In the morning, our energy is very likely going to feel a little low because we're probably going through some cortisol fluctuations. And this answer is totally different depending on if you have PTSD, if you have ADHD, if you have any neurodivergence of any kind. Your brain and your rhythms are going to be a little bit different. But when we're waking up in the morning, we need two major things right away. One is a big cup of water. It is really a good idea for us to have a water bottle or cup of water. I put a book on top of my cup of water so dust and cat fur doesn't get into it overnight. But our body needs hydration right away to kickstart our cells back up and get the energy moving. And then movement. Sometimes I literally lay in bed, especially when I'm really sleepy, and I just do some really gentle movements. So I might fold my arm across my chest. I might, stretch my arms out. I might roll onto my side and move my legs just to get a little bit of movement going in the morning. Not anything that is going to be too strenuous, but to allow the body to slowly wake up because your chemical levels are rebalancing. But honest to goodness, water first thing in the morning is one of the most effective things. And what a lot of us are missing because the body needs that water to kind of get the engine kick started. And sometimes if we're still really sleepy in the morning, it might mean that we're getting too much sleep or not enough. Most of us are looking for a sweet spot as adults of about 7 hours. And that is ensuring that we have like 2 to 3 REM cycles at least. So that's just my quick answer there. How to conduct an energy audit. So, tracking for awareness. This is my invitation to you this week is to track for awareness. So, noticing your energy levels throughout the day. So, let's just take this example of, you wake up in the morning, you're feeling really sleepy. Okay, well, that's a good observation. What time did I go to bed the night before? When did I wake up? Is there a rhythm to this, or is my sleep schedule all over the place? If your sleep schedule is all over the place night to night, your circadian rhythm doesn't know what it's doing. And so that's also going to make the waking really more challenging. So then maybe you start to identify there's specific activities during the day, people, environments that are rejuvenating you and energizing you, or that are depleting and draining you, and just taking note of that. How can I have more or less of that in the next, coming days? Paying attention to where you're at in that desire, commitment, discomfort spectrum. Because again, we want to be committed to what's ours to do. And we want that to be driven by desire of what's authentic to ourselves, not out of obligation, not out of forcing, pushing, etc. So just noticing these things, tracking throughout the week. What is rejuvenating you? How are you feeling in the morning, in the evening? What's draining you? So you can start to take stock of this. And then you can start to notice your specific leaks, your physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and environmental leaks. So what is draining your body's energy? Again, I learned this the hard way again last week because we're always learning and growing and integrating and coming in and out of things, right? But like I said, I had jury duty. I was kind of on call. I was trying to go to bed at certain times to prepare, but during the week, I was kind of in this frozen, "Ugh, what do I do?" And so I was not moving my body a lot. And I had insomnia all darn week. So we do need to use some of our energy to both rejuvenate it and bring the energy up, as well as to be able to sleep well at night. So finding that sweet spot where you're using enough energy to keep giving yourself energy, but not overdoing or underdoing it. What's making your physical energy leak? Maybe you're having a chronic illness flare. Maybe you had some insomnia. Just noticing those sorts of things. Mentally, where are you spinning yourself up? Where are you overthinking? Emotionally, what's draining your heart and emotional capacity? Maybe there's some things that are really sad for you right now, or really challenging, and that's leading to some emotional strain. And that's important to note because it is going to cause a leak if you're not tending to it. Spiritually, what's connecting you from meaning making or having that purpose. And again, I just want to emphasize here, you don't have to chase your purpose, you don't have to figure it out, but you want to know and trust that if you move through your life with intention and with truth to who you are, you're going to keep finding that meaning and purpose. And then environmentally, what in your surroundings or in your community is not supporting you and your blueprint? And then finally, prioritizing to take some action. So you have to gather the information first, but then what of these leaks are actually costing you the most energy? What ones are in your power to change right now? And where do you need support to actually make these changes happen and be integrated into your life? So, this is my invitation for you to get that energy audit, to really focus in on paying attention to what's happening in your life so that you can get some of this energy back. All right. So, let's take some time here to just drop in for a moment. Just going to do a little mindfulness practice. Mm. So I just invite you, your eyes can be opened or closed, but just to come into relationship with your body here in this present moment. Breathing, inhaling deeply, and feeling the energy flowing into your body. And as you're present with the energy flowing in your body, I invite you to just affirm internally, this is me and this is my energy. Feeling your skin, your hair, those physical limits of your body. And maybe getting curious. If you're energy sensitive, this will totally make sense. If you're an empath, I invite you to just get curious, but to see if you can extend your awareness beyond your skin, beyond your scalp, out 3, 4, 5, 6 inches to the sort of energetic bubble that surrounds you. It's a really fun fact that the heart does give off an electromagnetic field that can extend around 6 feet in front of you. But this is your energy, what's housed in your body and what's around your body. Breathing and bringing your awareness back inside into your heart space, feeling these physical limits, the top of your head, the palms of your hands, the soles of your feet, the front of your body, the back of your body, the left half of your body, the right half of your body. And this invisible bubble of energy, your aura, clinging to you just a few inches outside your skin. And as you breathe here, I invite you to consider something that maybe you're holding on to that doesn't belong to you. Maybe there's a project that you agreed to or that was thrust upon you that isn't in alignment anymore. Maybe there's a relationship that's really draining you. Maybe there's a thought or a belief that's been swirling for some time that's been holding you back. Whatever you're noticing here and now that's not you, I invite you to just gently blow it out. As you breathe in, calling yourself home to you and all that you are. And as you exhale, just gently letting go of anything that's not yours, anything you're ready to release. Maybe even softening the body on the exhale, allowing the shoulders to sink towards the earth. And almost like we're walking through a metal detector or a scanner in an airport, just scanning yourself head to toe, just to see if there's any energy, thoughts, sensations that feel stuck inside you, ready to be released. And if so, consciously breathing with them and gently letting them go. Maybe it feels like some things are hard to let go of. If so, just noticing, making a mental note if there's anything you could do to release that energy leak. Maybe a message you need to send, an item on your to do list you need to check off. Just setting an intention for yourself of any actionable steps that you might take to get some of your energy back. And then once again, breathing deeply, calling all of yourself back home, feeling the energy in your body, the air, the breath, the life flowing through you. You might squeeze your fists, you might scrunch your toes, you might tighten your glutes, anything to feel your physical body containing your energy within you right now. And then just releasing that. Remembering your body is your sacred temple. It is your home, the home of your mind, the home of your emotions, the home of your soul here on earth. And your body tells you so much information. So remember to check in with your physical energy, to notice and scan for aches and pains, for tension, for any information that you can use to become more in alignment. And I'll invite you, if the eyes are closed, to gently open them in your own time. And either way, to maybe do a nice stretch here, feeling the physical muscles. And do a no tiger twist. And if you're unfamiliar with the no tiger twist, all we do is we look up to one side, we look down, we twist and look behind us. We sweep back to center and look down and up and around from the other side. And this just reminds our nervous system and our body that we are safe, we are here. This is where we're at right here, right now. So, yeah, I'm not a morning person either. This comment came in. Maybe I'm just not a morning person. I am not a morning person. I have ADHD, and people with ADHD often find themselves really slow in the mornings because of the way the cortisol spikes. So I think it's awful. If I have to be honest, I think it's awful that our society exists in like this 9 to 5 mentality, and that's the normal schedule, because it's not true. Our energy is variable. Each person's unique energy is different. And some of us are morning people, some of us are afternoon people, some of us are evening people, and some of us are late night people. And if we were all one size fits all, things would be really boring, first of all. And second of all, we would have no coverage for each other. We're meant to help fill each other's differences, our various gaps. These gaps aren't judgments, they are built into our biology. That's why we need biodiversity. So, all right. Again, my invitation for the week is to really look at your energy leaks, take those notes, see what's happening in the morning, throughout the day, check in with yourself. Maybe really take some time to notice what drained your energy that day, what gave you energy that day, what outstanding tasks you still have that are actually creating those background energy leaks, and maybe what category of life is really the most draining for you. Is it the physical things, the emotional things, your environment, your lack of spiritual practice? All of these things can be true. And to just notice, how do you show up in the world? How do you engage? How do you sense and move through your experiences and connections? What is your body telling you? I know I give lots of invitations. It's because each of us is going to hear something different that's right for us. But you can only make changes by noticing, by data tracking, by actually seeing factually in reality what's going on, not the story you've cooked up in your head, not what you think is happening, not what someone else is telling you is happening, but what you're really experiencing. So, how can you show up in the world in a way that's even more supportive to you? And next time, we're going to be talking about establishing energetic boundaries in episode 10, so that you can take those energy leaks you're observing and actually create clear communication around what you need. So you can set more boundaries with your tech, your work, and your relationships, and can even create boundary statements that can preserve rather than drain your energy. So that's where we're going next here in Elements of Success. This will be our last air episode next, I believe. So exciting that we're through earth and air, through our stories and our energy. And hopefully you're starting to get to know yourself on an even more fundamental level, getting curious about how you work in the world so that you can be even more aligned and move towards your own definition of success, not society's, not your mom's, not your favorite teachers, but your unique definition of success. That is my dream for you and for all of us. So, as always, I welcome the questions. If there's anything you want to see covered in a future episode, please feel free to reach out. Otherwise, we'll be back next time in 2 weeks to talk about building these better boundaries, which is one of my favorite topics. And as always, you can get in touch with me at guide@safriana.com if you need me. That is the best way to reach me. So, until next time, my friends, I'm Safriana Luna, and I see you, I believe in you, and I am cheering you on as always. Bye for now.